afternoon, everybody. Late start, so I'll apologize to our tens of viewers. As stated, we were all previously at an event honoring the outgoing Chief of Staff, Odie Donald II. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'm Howard Shook, Chair of the committee. This is the June 25th meeting of the City of Atlanta Council Finance and Executive Committee meeting. Vice Chair Juan is to my right. We have Mr. Winston and Ms. Overstreet to my left. Others will be arriving shortly, but we do have a quorum, so I will move adoption of the agenda. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
I'll move adoption of the minutes of prior meeting. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No.
All right, we do not. That takes us to presentations. We have a COVID-19 funds report that is in handout form today, as is the Invest Atlanta financial update. We do have a live presentation today from the Department of Procurement. So, Commissioner, if you're ready, we have a copy of your handout. If you're ready, please take it away.
Yes. Hello, I'm Chandra Houston, Interim Chief Procurement Officer, and I wanted to present our quarterly update today. Do I just say next slide? Oh, there's a thing here. All right. Wrong way. Okay. So how does it go up and down? Okay, got it. All right. So I wanted to bring you guys up to date on where we are. We talked a little bit about this at our budget hearing, but I wanted to bring you the real numbers today. This is from FY25, and here are the totals for all the projects that were advertised between July 1st and May 8th. We had a total of 146 solicitations. These arrows represent year over year, whether we're up or down. So we were down a bit from FY24. Of those total 146 advertised, we had 59 IFBs, 46 RFPs, 24 specials, 9 sole source, 1 RFQ for construction, 4 piggyback agreements, 2 emergency procurements, and 24 cancellations. So to give you the full picture here, we wanted to show the completed projects during maybe about that same time frame, a few more days to bring it current. But of the 146 total procurements, we have completed 58 of the number of IFBs, 22, 27 RFPs, 5 special procurements, 2 emergency procurements, 1 sole source, 1 piggyback. And as you can see, we have continued to process purchase orders throughout the year, 21,000, almost 22,000 of those, and at a spend rate of $2.1 billion. So to explain a little bit about why we've had so few of the projects completed, you can see, as I did indicate during our budget hearing discussions, that we are really still at about 355 average days to complete RFPs and IFBs. You see the breakdown of the numbers. RFPs are really tracking at about 385 days, and the IFBs are tracking at 332 days. I will get into some explanation as to what we're going to do about that. We do recognize this is not where we want to be. Moving into alternative procurements, as you can see, the average duration time here is a whole lot better, approximately 130 days. And you can see the breakdown. Some numbers that might stand out to you are that sole source, for example, at 256 days. Now, reminding you that we've only really completed one sole source, and that sole source took 256 days, basically because it got started ahead of that new, it's not really new anymore, but the no exceptions contracting process that law assisted procurement with developing. That process really cuts out a whole lot of the back and forth negotiation time. The reality is, the city's terms and conditions really are the city's terms and conditions, and it makes a whole lot of sense for most, if not all, the suppliers to be on the same terms and conditions. And so having now begun to utilize that process, we do expect the this cycle time to go down drastically. So there have been lots of key issues, lots of discussions with our customers, the user agencies. The administration sponsored a task force, the Advancing Procurement Task Force, late fourth quarter 2024. And out of their report came these items. You'll see in this litany of issues quite a bit of discussion about misalignment of roles in DOP. The agencies would like for DOP to become more transparent and allow the agencies more say and more word in the process, particularly when it comes to need-specific evaluations. And hence, this is really the backdrop for the restructuring that we had to do. Once you see these numbers and you hear all of this commentary from our customers, we have to change our game. And that's really the basis for that restructuring that we talked a lot about during the budget hearing. So here is our new vision and a new way, really, of approaching DOP. We've really got to reorganize ourselves to put our customers first and put procurement first, really. And so this chart really shows you the ideas around how we're going to approach that. You'll see the word strategic throughout the remainder of this presentation, because we really do need to become much more strategic about our approach. In my observations, DOP has relied on certain tools and not relied on certain other tools. And in lots of situations, we really have more than one option for how to move forward. And so using the same tool is not always the appropriate way. It's not always the right tool to use, the right sourcing method to use. And so we've really got to be much more strategic about our approach. And so we've developed a set of teams here to really support how we're going to do this. Sourcing is prominent. Sourcing is first. And it's all about what we do. We are here to select the source so that the city's business can continue. New model. Now, this model is new to this department, but this model has been around in the procurement industry for quite some time. It's called sourcing in procurement. It makes all the sense in the world. And the cycle really fits with our code and where I believe procurement should be. You'll notice on this continuum that it starts with strategic procurement planning, which is something that, again, we need to do much more of. And it comes actually before you get to the sourcing selection, which is going to cut down a lot of the cycle time that we're seeing, right? A lot of that cycle time today is being used to plan it and not just to source it. So it's really difficult to count and separate how long sourcing actually takes, because it's just one big ball of stuff going on with the way that we're procuring today. Also notice in the continuum, again, this was not created by the city. But contract management is a part of it, just as our code requires for the Department of Procurement to maintain the contracts and help our agencies, our customers, track when those contracts are expiring. That is part of the process, and that is part of our new process as well. On the other side of that, directly opposite, is supplier performance tracking. That has been something that is necessary. You make much more intelligent decisions in re-procurements, new procurements, if you've got a baseline for suppliers that have done business with the city and you kind of know what to expect. Agencies should be able to consider a supplier's prior performance with the city in the new solicitation evaluation, right? So that is a part of the process as well. So sourcing in procurement really refers to the entire process. That in process includes research, data, the full evaluation process, so that you can make a good selection. It's all about sourcing, and so we are adopting this model, streamlining a lot of what we're doing today to fit this model, and I do expect cycle times to come down. Sourcing strategically, again, I've said this, it is now our mission, right? So we have implemented 5 new teams. You can see there just a little bit about what the teams do, but starting at the top there with our strategy team, this is where the pre-planning on the sourcing event will occur. In this team, we will conduct RFIs if necessary to get all the data that we need, market research if that's necessary, because we want to help the agencies go out with a scope that's really solid, that our suppliers can understand. What happens is when the scope is not very clear, you go out with the procurement and you end up with a whole lot of addendums, right? That could take 6 months, 9 months, just fielding through questions. And we get a lot of questions on scopes today. It's not remarkable to see 150 questions come back when you roll out a procurement. That takes a lot of time to understand those questions, to work with the agencies to address those questions, do an addendum, get it back out, extend the time for the suppliers to respond now that their questions are answered. And guess what happens? A lot of times they come back with even more questions. So we're gonna spend time on the scope, do what we can do to get it as clear as it needs to be, make sure that all the agencies that need to be involved, right, from an amendment perspective, you guys see a lot of requests for additional agencies to be added. This won't completely solve that issue, but it's certainly an opportunity that we've never had to shop internally and make sure that those that need to be involved are involved and at the table up front. Our performance team there in the orange is a support team. They actually will be armed to do the market data and the research to inform the scope, to make sure that we are dealing with the right base of suppliers in terms of industry and what they do. That is then shored up by our implementation team, which is where the sourcing actually will get done. These folks will execute the project and get it done. I think I mentioned to you guys at the budget hearing that our employees are now project managers. We're going to bring training to help them really be able to manage these projects on a timely basis, right? So that we can get through this. We are doing a whole lot of work to streamline, and streamline really isn't the word, completely revamp the documentation that we're using today. It's grown very complicated over the years. Suppliers don't like it. Some of their questions are, what are you really asking me to do here? And that's just a byproduct of many years of a template being added to, detracted from, and totally getting out of shape, which is where we are today. So we are revamping our templates completely. Then we have our operations team. This team does, from a sourcing perspective, they handle the purchasing, the small purchases, the micro purchases, as well as the purchase order processing. And they work closely with finance on the purchase order processing. They're the first leg of that system, and then it goes over to accounts payable and finance to make sure that our suppliers are paid. And finally, we have another new team called our Matrix team. These are folks that are partnering with our agencies to assist in any way that they can, any way that they're requested to, from a procurement perspective. So they could be asked to be at the table when a new need is identified to help them get that scope into shape. They could be asked to go and monitor a site and how the suppliers are working on that site. So just a host of things. Very agile team, ready to do what's necessary to assist the agency and the Department of Procurement in making sure things continue to be smooth. So with all of this, here's some of the first phase of expected improvements. With all the work that we've been doing since, I think, May, really, we've been working to roll this out, and you'll see in a second our rollout plan. But out of this, we expect a new day in terms of how we do pre-planning. It'll be collaborative. We expect OCC to be at the table, and they are in the room here. And Director Spencer and I talk probably a couple of times a week about this. Department of Risk will be at the table for the entire pre-planning phase. I mentioned the overhaul of the solicitation templates. Far fewer forms up front. We'll put the forms where they need to be, which is typically the awarded supplier needs to have those forms completed in order to enter into a contract with the city. So we're going to take those out of the evaluation spectrum, which means we should have fewer solicitations where there is no responsive bidders. That's very important to the supplier base and to us, because you have to start all over when that happens. We are working on new metrics for the executive offices and certainly for you folks so that you can see really what's going on. We're going to keep up with the numbers. We're going to do metrics internally as well to make sure that our structure, this new structure, is working for us and our customers and our suppliers as well. We are doing a refresh to the website, atlsupplier.com, a new look to set forward a lot of these new things that we're doing, a lot of marketing about the new way that DOP is going to do business with them, which we believe will be quite welcoming to the supplier base. We also are going to start supplier post-award debriefs. Something we heard from the supplier base that is important to them. If you've gone through a procurement and you weren't the awardee, you want to know, well, what happened? What can I do better? And these debrief sessions will be just that, sessions to tell our suppliers what you can do better, what you may have done not so well in that last solicitation. We expect to see improved contract expiration tracking. We are working on a what we call the contract management system. As you guys likely know, the contracts are in Oracle, but they come in and out of Oracle. And once they are signed, they have to be uploaded into Oracle. That takes some time sitting on folks' desks. We're actually putting intentional effort in keeping this system updated so that our customers can see their contracts. When a contract is at the 6-month mark before expiration, we actually will call the agencies in to have conversations. So hopefully we'll see far fewer code waivers down the road because we'll have an opportunity really to talk about what the next steps are, what the next path may be with that supplier, with that piece of business, with that project. And finally, the supplier performance tracking. We are initiating this process with this rollout. We're working on the documentation now. Our matrix team will be the team that will lead this effort because they're right there with the agencies and can have the conversations much easier than anyone else in DOP. And so there's an immediate rollout plan. And as I said, we actually started this in May with some team training, the restructuring, to teach our teams what they will be doing, to assign members to the teams. And work has continued from that point in terms of just getting ready for this rollout, which will be comprehensive training, additional comprehensive training for our staff, and then in a couple of weeks after that, training for our customers, the agencies, to know the new way and the new path forward for DOP. So we're trying to launch this August 4th, which is tomorrow, or it feels like tomorrow. It's right around the corner. So that's it for me. I'm certainly here for questions, comments.
All right, thank you. As we like to say around here, this is a lot to unpack. Remind us how many days you've been on the job?
I actually started at 2 p.m. on January 7th.
Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation,
That may have been
Commissioner. You and I had a great conversation when you were first appointed, and we talked about some of your vision on this. I will say I appreciate kind of the update and the refresh and the restructuring approach that you're going to take. I will tell you, though, these numbers are eye-popping in terms of our current competitive procurement cycle time.
Yes.
And I think you had warned me that the numbers we had been seeing or thinking before may have not been completely accurate, and this is the reality. But I'm really extra concerned now because, a year to finish a procurement is essentially a handcuff on the city, our ability to be able to execute and do anything as we're approaching a period where we're all pushing for accelerated delivery of repairs, new projects, maintenance work, infrastructure, all this. And what's even more troubling, though, is that when I see the days of the alternate procurement cycle times, those two, to me, basically are just, it's incentivizing departments to find workarounds. Mm-hmm. That is, I really should competitively procure this because that will likely yield the best result for the city in terms of vendor quality, price, and all that. But if I've got to wait a year, then I can look at a 21-day co-op arrangement. While that may be good for the city, may not necessarily be the best. It's just problematic for me, and I know you know that.
Yes.
I guess I'll start with just a curious question, though. Sole source to me should be almost the fastest way of doing something, because to me, sole source is I've got this unique situation. There's only one vendor out there that can do it. It requires, yes, analytics in terms of the justification, but it should be the fastest way to go. Why was this one? Why did it take so long? And I've got a follow-up question to that after you respond.
I 100% agree with all the points you just made, but specifically to that sole source, and I have a note here. This one predated that no exceptions contracting process or the enforcement thereof, right? So DOP at the time was just kind of learning that process when this one slipped in. So it took several iterations with law to get this agreement done, lots of negotiation. And I would say, you know, that is one aspect of a sole source. Under a sole source, you're typically going to have that supplier who is the only one. They've got a set of terms and conditions. So you do need to go through some negotiation, at least a review or two by law. But, you know, would I have suggested and supported 256 days worth? Absolutely not. Which is one reason that we created and developed that no exceptions process. So this one really just, it was timing, I believe, and it missed it.
Well, it's interesting because we were just in transportation earlier today, and I made the comment to the chair afterwards. We had one contract go month to month, and it was a sole source contract, and we were asking for a 9-month time window to figure out the replacement contract. And I thought that is unacceptably long. But now seeing this number, I'm like, oh, well, that's because we can't get it out of our own way to get that done. And to see emergency ones take 89 days is even more troubling because
It's just as troubling, yes.
emergencies are when we have storm incidents or something catastrophic. And if it takes us 3 months to be able to figure something out, if we don't already have a vehicle in place, then it, to me, I don't know, all the data you pointed to me kind of defeats the whole purpose of why we have set up the different vehicles that we have in terms of doing this. So you're going to have a serious charge in terms of trying to figure that out. Have you thought about what your targets are for these, for competitive, special, emergency, sole, and cooperative? I mean,
well, I'm reticent to set any targets because there's been so much activity historically that, you know, I'll just be frank, I think has been wrong. And so it's difficult for me to grab a target when I don't have any real data on what's realistic. I certainly agree with you that alternatives should take the least amount of time, for sure. You know, if I were just to take a stab at a special, 60 days is certainly the maximum. But what's realistic? I don't really know. What I ask is for, you know, really your support in figuring that out. We are moving quickly, as you can see. I think with the changes that we are making, we will see some immediate improvement on the cycle times across the board. I think right now, the cycle times are driven by not just mistakes, but bad process. You know, lack of training on both sides, customer and DOP. It's just a host of issues.
I appreciate what you're saying, though. At the same time, I'm wrestling with, but if we don't have a goal, then we just keep on keeping on and see if the attitude is we'll see where we land. You almost become a victim of that as well, that everyone just kind of plods along, and then if the number is only 2 days less, then well, that's where it was, versus hey, we think we want to aim for the stars here, and if the reality falls somewhere in the middle, then so be it.
So if I may speak to that, I certainly don't mean to say there will be no targets. There will be targets. But I mentioned at the budget hearing, starting to do some benchmarking with others to see what should be real. And I will adopt those targets, certainly. And if they're too long, we will improve upon those targets and have targets for sure.
The other thing that perplexes me a little bit, though, is that I was in my mind, I wrote down, I wonder what percentage of our procurements are repeats, that it is, yes, new technology, new products and services, I get it, but there's some things that we're just buying, like paving. Like paving isn't something that is revolutionizing itself every 6 months. And so I kind of feel like, isn't there a large percentage that we can basically just cut and paste 90% of what we did before versus reinventing the wheel every time and shortening that? And if we can't do it with internally, you know, surely we have sister municipalities and agencies that are doing the same work, and we can kind of go, hey, DeKalb County, hey, GDOT, we got the same, we see you're doing the work here, we want to do the same thing. Can we see what your procurement document looks like?
That's right.
Just looking for ways to continue to, again, I just don't feel like a lot of this is revolutionary. And so it concerns me that it does feel like we're reinventing the wheel under new leadership again, and for maybe something that only represents 20% of our procurements.
Well, and I can appreciate your thoughts there. I would argue, though, that a lot of the ones in the past, even though they may be things that we do all the time, they were in that 300-day category. So to take that same document or even that same scope and start again without refreshing that scope, without really validating and now knowing what you were missing based on that learning that you got from that last time would get you to the same place.
Yes, but you say that previous procurements, you end up with a bunch of Q&As. I mean, that's a refinement process as well, right?
Yes, and that's the learning,
yeah.
right?
And so,
yeah,
I just, this perplexes me because again, it doesn't align with maybe the way I'm looking at it is the old antiquated way of looking at it. But you know, again, you will, I definitely will afford you the time to get in there and kind of upend this and rework it because again, the pressure is on us, collectively, the city, to deliver, particularly over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yes.
The final thing I'll say is that, the irony is that you talked about the contract expiration tracking process, and you said, oh, we're going to sit down with the agency 6 months before their contracts expire. From what you told me, that's not enough time. I mean, you basically have already, at 6 months before expiration, you've already forced yourself into a month-to-month situation. So, I think we've got to rethink that. Okay. I think a number of us, you may hear it from other council members up here, but a number of us have kind of expressed our frustration with the number of month-to-months that we are seeing. Mm-hmm. And if that means until we get the reforms done that we roll back and that expiration sit-down meeting is 18 months before, because we know we have to have that runway, then that may be just the reality of what we have to do. But like I said, I have hope and faith that you can do this because we got to. I think, based on our meeting and our conversation, I know you've got the right perspective. We agreed on a lot of things in terms of approach, and I just hope we see some hockey stick returns in terms of changes and the dramatic decreases in the times. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We've been joined by Mr. Amos. Ms. Overstreet, you're up.
Thank you for your presentation. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you guys kept talking through the question that Councilmember Juan was asking, because that was actually a question of mine as well. Like, what should our benchmark be? And I definitely think we need one for sure. Like, we need to look at best practices. Most definitely the closest best practices to us as a jurisdiction, because I have heard good news about other entities where procurement is concerned, like right across the street, because, sure, Atlanta is Fulton County and DeKalb County. And we've got wins in the procurement department in jurisdictions close by. Mm-hmm. So we definitely need some type of benchmark. And I also agree that 6 months is probably not long enough to start those conversations when it's time for contract renewal or contract ending, mm-hmm. Because we've shown that we're in the best case scenario over 300 something days out, mm-hmm. From actually securing another contract or, getting to the next one. So those are some of the things that I do think that we need to continue to work on. I'm glad you put a slide in about the procurement task force, because I do think that we're doing good work. Is it going to actually answer every single question that we have about every procurement issue? Probably not, but I absolutely believe that we are doing good work, and we have quite a bit of accomplishments to talk about already.
Yes.
So I think tomorrow's our last meeting because the legislation sunsets at the end of the month. I can't say that I'm real sad about that, but I do think it's an ongoing conversation that we're tied to have at this point. And I'm happy to do that beyond our completion of our task force. Like, I'm gonna be stuck to you and whatever you like for me to do until all of the things that we've identified and that we're working on are looking just the way that they should for the city. So count me in on that. And I can't say that I have an actual question, but I definitely want you to know that we support you. And we do believe in your expertise for sure. Want to apologize to you for having such a heavy lift. Lord knows we did our best as a council to believe the numbers that were before us when they were presented to us, and have faith in the process that, because 2 years ago everything was new and new this and the new role and new and it looked good too, so we really, I don't even think that we're even skeptical with your work at this point, which is a good thing, because we have every right to be at this point for sure, and I don't feel that way. So I do want you to know that. So I just wanted to weigh in and let you know that I do think we need benchmarks.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to us putting a bow on our task force, our procurement reform task force, and sharing all of the good news with everyone, because I do believe that we're getting down to the nitty gritty of best practices. And it's probably just that simple, and using a whole lot of tools that we have available now that just aren't being used properly at this time. So with that, I yield. Just wanted to weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Amos.
Yes, sir. A lot of my questions have been covered and answered, definitely about the 365 RFP. I'm understanding it's not an industry standard, but I'm glad we're looking to set one. But in the launch of, I guess, the new sourcing thing, there are some things that did not stick out to me. Is there a cadence to us? Will there be a cadence to us releasing RFPs? Meaning, if we're going to release RFP in which responses are due back the week before a holiday or a week before something like that, that practice needs to stop, in my opinion. And then in a phase one, it talks about the things we're going to correct. Will we be correct in our response time? Meaning, we get questions from the people seeking the RFP. We hold them for 3 or 4 months, get them back to them, and they have 1 week to respond. That practice needs to stop as well. So inside of that, will those two things be addressed?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. We will get on a cadence. We hope to avoid, first of all, a lot of addendums by doing a lot of the work up front. So the hope is we'll have far fewer of those and far fewer of those 3-4 month spans. But certainly, that's not guaranteed every case. And so where we do have them, we will be very intentional and very thoughtful about the time period that we need for the suppliers to respond again. For sure. I have noticed some of the issues that you are speaking of. And so, yes, it's in the plan, certainly. And I'd just like to take a moment to say, certainly to Councilmember Wan and Councilmember Overstreet, I hear you loud and clear. 18 months, if that is a better position to take, it's nothing but, you've said it, we'll get that done. Not a problem.
All right, thank you. Could you please send us your leadership org chart,
Certainly.
and as well as some personal data that lets us know how many positions you have, how many of them are filled versus vacant across the various job categories.
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so, just so that I understand the new format here, when you present the current quarter's format, you're not comparing that to prior quarter, you're looking back a year, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And I think under the circumstances, that's going to be very illuminating to do it that way. So, all right, Mr. Wan's touched on the 89 days, which is that it takes us 89 days to do an emergency procurement is like something from a Monty Python sketch to my mind. But you're going to work on that.
Yes.
Co-ops. So the time to do a co-op's so much shorter than the other procurements.
It is.
And so we've never known, because none of us are procurement experts, professionals, whether the department prefers co-ops because they're easier to do or because they give us the best value. And how are you going to reassure us that those decisions are being made for the right reason?
Okay. I do think, to be perfectly transparent, it's a little bit of both of those things. The difficulty, however, with a co-op is we had to start with a scope, right? That agency had to start with a need and a scope. And if the scope doesn't fit the co-op, there's nothing you can do. You can't use the co-op. So it's not always available. It sometimes is, and when it is, we've got we go through the exercise of verifying that the public entity that, is offering their contract for us to use has gone through a very similar competitive process as we have gone through. And so once we have that comfort, they actually did the work. So it is a little easier to get into it. However, we've got to make sure that the timing of that contract, its term is appropriate for the city to use, that scope aligns with the scope that the city has defined. You can't really fudge on that. So cooperatives are available. They certainly are a tool. Sometimes it works out. A lot of times it simply does not.
Okay. Thank you. Understood. Which brings me to this. I always like to just acknowledge the obvious that often gets overlooked, which is the reality that your department can only be as good as the operating departments with whom you partner.
Yes.
And that's a problem around here historically.
Yes.
So I'm going to throw that out there every chance I get, because it's not just about one
Yes.
partner needing to be coached up while the other is deemed to be doing just fine.
Yes.
Contract expiration tracking, although that's been touched on, I'll just sort of underscore that. I mean, I was here when we debated paying for Oracle and installing Oracle.
Yes.
And as has been the case with many organizations, public and private, it was murder. And it was hideously expensive, a lot more expensive than what we were promised.
Yes.
A lot of the employees hated it. And if the people, it's a Ferrari, but if you don't have the right driver and the right mechanics, it's just going to sit in the garage.
Yes.
That said, we have spent all this money. I don't know what it's going to take. A contract should never just expire. No one should ever just wake up one day and say, oh, shoot, that's expired. So, and that may be a COO thing, to be honest. That maybe the COO needs to get a couple people in a woodshed and lock the door and figure stuff out. But your thoughts on that?
Yes, in fact, the COO, the DCOO Ingram, they've been very supportive. I've had 2 meetings with Deloitte over the course of the last, I'd say, 6 weeks. And we have talked to Deloitte about automating the procurement side of things a whole lot more. Part of the issue with the contracts is that the contract has to come out of the system, go through the, at least some aspects of the signature process, get loaded back up. So the discipline hasn't always been in DOP to do that. We're going to make sure that discipline is certainly there now to get that done. But the really good news is that Oracle has conceived a way for us to not have to bring it out of the system, which means it'll automatically be right there on time for everybody to see. So we're working closely with Deloitte right now with the support of finance and the administration to do a lot of the work that we need to be done from a technology standpoint to help support this department and its processes.
Okay. Well, it's good that they're working with us. God knows, as Ms. Carr knows, I'm never shy about complaining about how much money we have shoveled in their direction over the years. It's, in procurement terms, that is a
Yes.
Catholic marriage, if there ever was one, till death do us part.
Yes.
But I can't blame them for the problems that you are encountering and that we have encountered. God knows you're a busy person. If you haven't already, you may want to at least assign someone else to go back and pull, say, the last 3 audits that have been done on the procurement department and process.
Yes.
They're all going to be things that you have already discovered and uncovered, but you might find some additional just context and data there that will help you.
Okay.
Talk about Catholic relationships. You have a partner called iPro,
Yes.
and they're not going away.
No.
How is that working out?
It's working out. We've been in contact with that department. They know about the changes that we're making. They have offered their support in any way. Hopefully, you've started to see some improvement on our side, at least to respond, so that you can make sense out of what happened. And in this new process, I would say just about all of that game is going to change. My mandate on the Department of Procurement is to avoid iPro findings, at least the ones that we can control, right? There are others that, the agencies really have to address. Hopefully those also will diminish over time with our strategy team. That is a team that's going to collaborate with the agency, with OCC, with RIS. They're all right there at the table. We're going to punch out these scopes. We're going to test those scopes, validate those scopes, talk about the non-responsiveness review. Those folks are already at the table. And so my hope is having a much more collaborative process up front where we are in the business of being prepared for sourcing in a better way is going to make a difference.
And then last question, you've talked about the strategic approach
Yes.
that you're going to take, that under which all of this will then flow.
Yes.
But for us lay people, in 1 or 2 sentences, what is that strategy?
That strategy is to, number one, use all the tools in the toolbox, right? All of the, for example, you mentioned that there are opportunities with other public entities that are doing exactly the same kind of work. Communicate with them, right? That's a part of the process. So that's number one. Number two, we certainly will make sure that the right tool is used for the right procurement. There are certain things that kind of roll off the tongue like an RFP. RFP really isn't always the solution. Sometimes it really is that IFB. But I find that we just ask for an RFP, we do an RFP, and then it takes forever because it was really the wrong method to use in the first place. So we're going to think about the methods that we use We're going to talk in that collaborative strategy sessions, right, about what the right method really is to use. DOP is here to, certainly prevent any anti-competitive behavior. But, that RFP is likely not always the answer. So we will be working to find the answer. In my experience, there actually are probably 3 methods that you could use for any procurement. So let's talk about those. The one that you select is going to be based on the time, the amount of effort, how new it is, what the need is. There are just a lot of things to discuss up front before you just say, I'm doing an RFP, and you roll on. That's why a lot of these haven't completed, because they were the wrong method to start with.
All right, before I recognize Ms. Bakhtiari, I'll just finish by saying to you what I've probably said to 10 or 11 of your predecessors, which is we want you to succeed.
Yes. Thank you.
We really need you to succeed, and we're here to help you succeed.
Thank
Now,
you.
the fact that you're like the 11th or 12th person I've said this to is
Yes.
enormously deflating to me on a personal level. I cannot lie about that. One of the best things you can do for yourself in furtherance of letting us help you is give it to us straight with no chaser.
Yes, sir.
Every time. We can deal with that a whole lot better than any other approach. Ms. Bakhtiari.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner.
Hello.
Hey, just colleagues covered the bulk of questions. Just a few. You mentioned metrics and measuring those. Can you elaborate on what those metrics are going to be?
So far, we have about 13 of them. They will be both internal for only our eyes to see are our processes working the way we intend them to work.
Okay.
Can we get faster on this? It'll be information, data points that we can use to see how well we're doing. And then other data points that we will share about the operations that are customary. You guys love to talk about cycle time. I don't blame you. That matters. So there'll be metrics around cycle time. Once we get those targets, right, after this benchmarking is done, we will target those metrics to how well we're doing, how well are we meeting that time frame that we've agreed makes sense for us to be operating at.
Okay, so understood. Got you. And you're looking to do these metric measurements every,
Most will be monthly.
oh, that is
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Most will be monthly. Some others will be quarterly. It really
Okay.
just depends on what it
I
is.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. So case-by-case basis that we'll tackle.
Yes.
Got it. And then you also mentioned tools.
Yes.
Bad tools versus ones we might be using now. I don't know if you can elaborate on that now. It seems like a big piece of the conversation, or the best way it
Yes.
is to get feedback on what specifically you're referring to.
So tools are the sourcing methods.
Okay.
RFP is a tool. IFB is a tool. When you look at the code, we should be doing a whole lot more IFBs because the lower price brings the greatest value to the city.
Got it.
There are ways that you can get into IFB situations that we're not utilizing. For example, statement of qualifications. That's a document where you go out and you get folks qualified to do business with you based on what your needs are. In that document, you explain what you're going to be looking for. Georgia Tech uses it quite a bit. I like it. I'm borrowing their form. Yes, to actually put it together. But lots of pre-planning goes there, but once you have a list of qualified suppliers, then, on each project, if it's a series of projects, and we have a lot of those kinds of projects, right? You can go and create a short list, right? And then get that short list to give you their price. So you're doing an IFB, you choose that lowest price. You still got a list of qualified folks for the next project for the next 3 years, if we're okay with that. I don't, we could talk about how long we'd like that list to be available to us. We would certainly refresh it on an annual basis, but there are ways to have a ready set of vendors to do a lot of this work that we can do, already on hand, already qualified. You've gone through an evaluation process. They are ready to do the work. They're waiting on you to give them the project. That, to me, is short cycle time. Now, it takes about 4 weeks in most cases to advertise this. A lot of them are construction related where you use this tool. Think about DEEM and the upkeep of this building, any of our public buildings, those kind of things. I've even started talking to Commissioner Davis about, let's do SOQs for HVAC work. We've got vendors ready for us. They're waiting on us, and we're not having to go find them.
Got it. Thank you. And to that point about the tools piece that you were talking about with sourcing, is the new staffing and the flow chart or the org chart where you're going to be reflective of those changes, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
The org chart reflects the new teams, and the teams, we'll give you full descriptions of the teams and what they're going to do, and you'll see sort of how it's going to flow. We're also working on a process workflow right now, so we can add that into the mix, just to give you all the information you need to see how it's going to work.
Thank you. And in terms of the task force and seeing that piece, and thank you for including that, will there be elaboration on or when could we expect elaboration on those pieces, things like issue resolution or some of the sourcing problems you cited, all of the pieces that you identified as major improvement areas? Will we get more in-depth support on each of these categories?
We will. We will roll this new process out in August.
Okay.
And so my next report to you will be on exactly those things.
Got it.
Here's where we are. Here's what's happening. Here are the successes. Here's what we still need to work on.
Understood. And with FIFA on the horizon,
Yes.
with everything going through there, I'm curious as to how we are seeing procurement, because obviously, it's practically happening. I mean, it's basically tomorrow.
Yeah.
So how is it looking for our projections around procurement for getting out a lot of those infrastructure improvements and larger projects?
I think we're right on time with this new process, quite frankly. I've started talking to some in the administration already, are reaching out, so let's get prepared for sourcing for some of the things we're going to need for FIFA, and it's going to be done in this new way.
Okay. And that'll be included, I'm guessing, in your next quarterly report?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And last question?
Yes.
Personal one. Reimbursements. So I don't believe this, I only found out about this last month. I believe we have one person that works in reimbursements. And when I spoke to him, he says he doesn't do emails. So could we find a way to improve that process for personal for reimbursements for our body, for reimbursements for other employees in the building? So.
Oh, I see. Okay. That actually is Miss Carr right there.
Ms. Carr, I'm looking at you. I know, I'm sorry, I got that confused. Sorry, I think it was a subconscious way of plugging it so that I could get you to answer.
Thank you so much. We'll look into that.
Commissioner, sorry. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. If there is nothing else, thank you, Commissioner. We look forward to continuing this dialogue.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, ordinances for second reading. 25-0-1370 requires a substitute. I'll move to bring one forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. The substitute is before you.
And I'll recognize that the duties today are being performed by Ms. Santana Kempson Wright.
Aye. Will everyone please vote?
Who's working at a class again. She wants us to vote.
The substitute is before you.
All right, thank you. Substitute caption reads as follows. This is an ordinance by Mr. Amos, as substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing the CFO to create the District 3 Neighborhood Engagement Fund for the purpose of funding community engagement activities, including but not limited to community events, outreach initiatives, and civic participation programs, to authorize future donations, sponsorships, and transfers to be deposited into the fund and for other purposes.
Motion to approve?
Motion has been made and properly seconded. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote to approve on substitute.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, thank you. The ayes have it, so ordered. 25-013-71, which is related, also requires a substitute. I'll motion to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. The substitute is before you.
Which reads, an ordinance by Mr. Amos, substituted by Finance Exec, to authorize the CFO to create the District 3 Neighborhood Engagement Fund, number listed, for the purpose of funding community engagement activities, including but not limited to community events, outreach initiatives, and civic participation programs, to authorize future donations, sponsorships, and transfers to be deposited into. All right, substituted caption reading take 2. This is an ordinance by Mr. Amos, as substituted by Finance Exec, to authorize the CFO to close the District 3 Holiday Family Assistance Fund Initiative Fund listed, and the District 3 Senior Citizens Picnic Fund number listed, to transfer the remaining balances from these funds into the newly created District 3 Neighborhood Engagement Fund and for other purposes.
Motion to approve?
Motion is made to approve on substitute, properly seconded. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. That takes us to 25-1735. It's an ordinance by Ms. Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 380 Wilkinson Drive pursuant to the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Land Independent School System, to notify the DCA of such annexation and for other purposes. And we need to hold this here while the companion pieces catch up.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to hold. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it, so ordered. 25-013-80 requires a substitute. I'll motion to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed. The substitute is before you.
All right, this is an ordinance by Ms. Boone, substituted by FEC, authorizing the mayor to waive the competitive source provisions contained in the listed section of the city code of the procurement and real estate section, as well as any other conflicting code provisions, to ratify services rendered and any invoices associated therewith in connection with the agreement listed, Emergency Violence Prevention and Reduction Program Administrative Services with Chris 180 Inc., and to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Equity, Diversion, and Inclusion for a term of 2 days, retroactively effective January 23 of this year through January 24th of this year. All contract work to be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. And I'll second that. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. 25-013-82 is an ordinance by Mr. Hillis to amend the ordinance listed, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on the date listed and approved per the charter section listed on that date listed, to add and delete certain count strings, and as always for other purposes.
Moving this forward on condition for a substitute.
Does this need a substitute?
Not this one. It's ready.
Move approval.
And I'll second that. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Okay, 2501385, this is an ordinance by Shook authorizing transfer of funds from various Atlanta City Council carry forward accounts to the appropriate distribution account to replenish funds for FY '26 and for other purposes.
This one we're moving forward with no on conditions.
And we're moving this one forward on condition of receiving a substitute on the floor.
Yes, that is correct.
That's my motion, second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
Is this next one ready to go?
Same.
Okay.
Vote is closed.
Okay, 2501386 is an ordinance by Juan Bakhtiari, Collins, and Westmoreland authorizing a donation to the Atlanta Pride Committee in an amount not to exceed blank on behalf of the City Council to support the 2025 Atlanta Pride Festival pursuant to the code section listed here and for other purposes. The motion is to send this forward with no recommendation on condition of receiving a substitute on the floor. Second by Juan. Let's open.
The vote is open.
So the substitute's going to include Ms. Overstreet. Okay.
Yes.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, that motion's approved. We'll take that up Monday. That takes us to resolutions. 25R 3597 is a resolution by Ms. Overstreet authorizing the mayor to execute task order for the RFP listed. For the contract listed, this is for job order contracting services small with Periani Real Estate, doing business as Periani Construction for the renovation of Fire Station Number 5 on behalf of Deem in an amount not to exceed $1,084,641.30. All work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Motion to approve by Juan, second by Overstreet. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. 25R 3598 is a resolution by Ms. Overstreet authorizing the mayor to exercise the first renewal option for the SS indicated. This is with Aegis Software Licenses, Maintenance, and Technical Support with Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc. on behalf of AIM for a term of 1 year, effective September 7th of this year through September 6th of next, in an amount not to exceed $1.1 million. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Ms. Rackley, how are you?
Doing wonderful. Good afternoon. Like me to begin? All right. Daphne Rackley,
Every now and
Deputy
then.
Chief Information
Every
Officer.
now and then, yeah.
Yes, sir. So this is the legislation that provides the first of 2 renewal options for ESRI. And it is the enterprise GIS platform that is utilized across the city. So there are about 9 departments that put funding into ESRI. It's an expensive platform. We've been working hard to make sure we come together as a city, all the various departments, to talk about how we can more effectively utilize licenses, training, credits for additional support from ESRI, and it's now growing exponentially, its use and popularity. And we've seen increased growth too, even with the FIFA Cup approaching, people trying to use GIS to help solve problems and to look at information from a spatial perspective as well.
I'll second that. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Now, Ms. Rackley, it's like jury duty. Every now and then
We got to participate.
you got to show up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. 25R 3646 is a resolution by FEC authorizing the mayor to execute the second renewal for the sole source agreement indicated repair and maintenance of automated public toilets with Facilities and Services, Inc. on behalf of Deem for a term of 1 year effective August 26th of this year through August 25th of next in an amount not to exceed $156,750, all contingent upon adoption and approval of the FY26 budget, all work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. And I will second that. If there's anything else, let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, motion carries. 25R3647 is a resolution by FEC authorizing the mayor to execute the first renewal for the SS indicated. This is integrated software services with integrated documentation services, doing business as Multivista of Georgia on behalf of Deem, effective August 11 of this year through August 10th of next, in an amount not to exceed $99,000. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. I'll second that. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. 25R3648 is a resolution by FEC authorizing the mayor to exercise first renewal for the SS indicated special inspection services with Matrix Engineering Group on behalf of Deem for a term of 1 year, effective August 11 of this year through August 10 of next, in an amount not to exceed $99,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Motion to approve by Juan, second by Shook. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. 25R3649 is a resolution by FEC to amend the resolution listed, adopted by the council on the date listed and approved per charter, section listed on that date listed to correct the funding information and for other purposes. Move approval. Second. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. 25R3650 is a resolution by FEC authorizing the mayor to exercise the first renewal for the RFP indicated arbitrage rebate calculation services with Hilltop Securities Asset Management, Inc. LLC on behalf of DOF for a term of 1 year, effective August 30th of this through August 29th of next year, in an amount not to exceed $62,720, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Knight.
Good afternoon, Chairman Shook, members of the committee. Courtney Knight, Chief of Treasury Debt and Investments. When we issue bonds on a tax-exempt basis, and Councilmember Winston, you've asked previously about what's happening in Congress about tax exemption, we're offered that benefit, so our bonds are issued at a lower interest rate. On the flip side, they require that we track the investment and use of our bond proceeds to make sure that we're not investing those bonds at yields higher than the yield on the bonds themselves. So we have to track the expenditure and investment of our bond proceeds, and we use what's called an arbitrage rebate consultant to help us prepare an arbitrage rebate report that's required to file with the IRS every 5 years. So this is a renewal of the contract with our arbitrage rebate consultant.
Ms. Bakhtiari seconds that, so let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Thank you.
That takes us to the first of our two held papers today, first of which is item 22, page 11. I will move to bring a substitute forward, second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. 25R3549 is a resolution by Shook, as substituted by FEC, authorizing the Commissioner of Watershed to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with the section of the code listed here in the amount of $192,126.29. And for other purposes, I'll move approval on substitute. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. So ordered. 25R3550. I'll move to bring substitute forward for that.
Second.
Second by Mr. Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. The substitute is before you.
Which reads, a resolution by Shook is substituted by FEC authorizing the CFO to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in the amount of $499,455.79. All funds to be charged to and paid from et cetera. I'll move approval on substitute. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is closed.
I thank you. Do we have any other business, Ms. Kempson Wright?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe we have 4 walk-ins.
See, when's Jared coming?
That concludes our legislative items, Mr. Chair.
If there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Thank you.